Welcome to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. So happy to have you joining us here on our Faith and Family Wednesdays. It's interesting because we had this format for our first season here, January through what were we on, July, August this year, and then we took a little bit of break. And when we came back, it was all politics. It was all the elections, and it's nice to get back to our regular daily format because our goal here at the Peak is to cover the whole region. And how do we do that? Well, we get into the news, but more than anything else, we bring on people that are making an impact in the region and talk to them. We're building out our internship and citizen journalist network of sorts in order to bring more reports. And tomorrow, I tell you at the end of the program what tomorrow is going to be about. It's really exciting because we have one of our interns who is our producer reporter intern who has been with us a couple of months doing investigative journalism, and she'll be on the program to actually give a report on youth homelessness and also talk about her journey and how she worked that out to get that. We love that. We love training up youth, and we love training up everybody really to give a platform here because we here at the Peak say the quiet stuff out loud, and that's what we need to do in our society. We need to be willing to talk. We need to be willing to tackle difficult issues in a civil way. Do we even know how to do that anymore? We have to. We really have to figure that out as a society, in our families, at work, with neighbors, with everybody really. But one of the things that is crucially important is that there be accountability and transparency. All of us, it's funny. Someone said to me one time, the Bible never calls us adults of God. We're always children of God, right? We're children. We're always children, and He's our Father, and so we need accountability, all of us. When we don't have people checking on us, we get lazy. If there's not a police officer out there, not me, but I know you speed, right? When that happens, and so as a society, that's what the media is supposed to be doing, is providing that necessary accountability. But as we have found, especially over the elections, man, oh man, were they willing to say anything, anything. And now the truth is coming out. I mean, isn't it amazing that, today, President Biden sat down with Hitler. I mean, let's just face it, they had a cordial, with Trump and Biden sat down, the person who's a threat to democracy, a total danger to our country, a fascist. Now it's like peaceful transition of power, we're just going to move on. Everybody's like, okay, that was rhetoric, wasn't it? And we can't have that on both sides of the aisle. We can't have it on any sides of the aisle. And so we want to focus, as we're now post-election, on relationships. How do we build back relationships? Of course, marriage and family is the most important, but business, just neighbors is so important. And so we have on the program today Dr. Clarence Shuler of Building Lasting Relationships, which is a local nonprofit here in the Springs that assists individuals and organizations in developing mutually beneficial relationships. Dr. Clarence Shuler, welcome to the Peak.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. And we're going to be talking about, well, we have a bunch of things. And we're going to be doing headlines next, faith, family, community type of headlines. But Clarence focuses on marriages in a lot of ways, and so we're going to do a segment on that. But we will be tackling, how do we as a society build relationships or repair relationships or have relationships in this cancel culture that we find ourselves in, where people, all of us, I think, are scared about saying something that might get someone upset. And well, not me. I sort of don't have that filter so much. But that's why I'm on the radio doing this stuff. But we really need to be able to do that, and I need to be better at it. So I'm so happy to have you here, Clarence. When we are thinking about relationships and do we value the other person, or are we just trying to get by? Are we trying to get something from them? Are we trying to move forward our own agenda, or do we really care about the people that we're dealing with, who we work with, the people that we see in church? Have we become a society where it's more just polite, or do we have a heart for what's going on? And we here at the Peak, we have a heart for doing this in the media, but really wherever you find yourself out and about, can we be ambassadors? Can we be those people who ask people really sincerely, how are you doing? You know, what's going on in your life? Because we're all looking for that connection. We know we are. And I hope that in this new time that we have a new government coming in, like it or not, that we can work through things as a society, especially here in the Pikes Peak region where we live. Well, you're listening to The Peak. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and we have started this week something I'm really, really excited about, which is Bill Federer, if you know who that is. He's a historian, and he has something called the American Minute. Here's Bill.
The Vietnam Memorial was dedicated this day, November 13th, 1982, honoring the 58,000 American troops who died. In 1966, Marine Sergeant George Hutchings of the 1st Battalion, 5th Marine Division, had over 200 men killed around him during an ambush by the Viet Cong. Shot 3 times, he was bayoneted and left for dead, for which he received the Purple Heart. Of the memorial, George Hutchings said, "On that wall is the name of Corporal Quentin Weiss, who was hit in the chest with a rocket while running a patrol in my place. A Christian, he had shared the gospel with me, but I didn't understand it till he gave his life in my place."
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
Okay.
Our vision is a
Okay.
kingdom-God revolution in the Rockies to empower...
We're trying technically to work out how that plays. So we good? Is that good?
Yeah, I think so.
Good intro overall?
What?
Was good intro overall?
Yeah,
Set a
pretty
good
good.
tone?
Yeah.
Okay, so the way that one worked out, because normally I was giving you right on point, but this time, when I told you how much time you have, I removed 6 seconds, so I told you 6 minutes instead of 6:06. And so now you'll have 10 extra seconds in the next segment.
Okay. But normally that was going to be 6:06?
Yeah,
Okay.
because in the past, I like the past 2 days, I told you 6:06, and then you like went right up to the edge of it,
Right.
and then a little bit over. So.
Okay. Okay, but I thought it was going to cue right at 6 minutes.
So okay, I should have told you that the thing we discussed earlier is going to be done on Friday. So for tomorrow and
Well, there
today,
is no tomorrow. Okay.
today's Thursday.
For Monday.
Yeah.
I mean, there will be a tomorrow, but not with me in it.
Hopefully there's one tomorrow. Hopefully. I mean, well, you know, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing.
Oh no, it's tomorrow. Oh, well,
Tomorrow's
that's
Thursday.
right.
This is
Tomorrow is
Wednesday.
Thursday. You're right. So
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Friday is when. So I'm coming in on Friday, and me and Matt are going to work on the clock together. And
Okay.
then Monday, that's how it'll be.
Okay.
But tomorrow it's going to run the same way.
Same way with a hotkey.
Yeah.
You'll just cue it when I'm done.
But
So I can
Matt-
go. So I can go to 6:10.
Yes.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Sorry for the.
Okay. I don't even know what I just said. Okay. We have about a minute and a half.
Okay.
Everybody, let me work on this script here. Maybe we can have one by the time we're done here. Let's see.
That's BrandonTransformations.com.
So what we'll do is I think whatever this interview that we're doing in this show, the 12 minutes,
Okay.
that'll be the first segment of the next program that we do. Like those will be our 4 questions that we go through, and then marital infidelity, dealing with marital
Okay.
infidelity in the second 12-minute segment. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm suggesting these things, but does that fit you? Does that feel?
Yeah, I was trying.
Right.
I'm trying to catch with all the sort of things because
I know.
at one point you want me to tell about my qualifications to some extent, so I'm just trying to listen and follow you and see what
Right.
happens.
Okay.
Follow your lead and see what happens.
Okay, I'm sorry an email didn't go. The articles, not a news article. Thank you. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. And we're doing live radio here. I want to clue you in a little bit on what that's about. It's crazy. Like at the breaks. By the way, we're streaming on Facebook, so if you want to see the craziness in the breaks, you can go to Facebook, the Peak News Media on Facebook. If you want to see what we look like here, Clarence Shuler and me in the studio here. But at the breaks, we're always making adjustments. We're figuring out what we're going to talk about in the next segment, even though we have it somewhat planned out. It's really a hectic life here at the radio station, and I invite you to be part of it if you like that kind of stuff, as people who work at radio stations and any kind of broadcasting and deadline-oriented stuff generally do. Go to thepeak.news, that's our website, and check out being a citizen journalist or a tech or an intern. Or, if you want to help sponsor us, that's awesome. We love our sponsors, and please patronize our sponsors. And be part of what we're doing here, this citizens grassroots project to bring true journalism back to our region. So we have in this segment, we are doing headlines, and we have with us for the whole hour as our guest and co-host, Dr. Clarence Shuler of Building Lasting Relationships. Again, Clarence, thanks for being here.
Well, it's fun being with the Watchman.
Yeah, we're trying. I'd like everybody to be a watchman, but until that happens, I'll do it. And yeah, we need to watch out, and we need to call things out, and we need to bring attention to things so that we can make our society safe and better. And we live in a wonderful place, and we want to keep it that way. So a few headlines that we're going to be covering today and talking about. The first one is marijuana, recreational marijuana here in the Springs. We do not have the final tallies yet. Originally, it was looking that both ballot initiatives that were on the, if you live in Colorado Springs, it was on your ballot last week that you hopefully voted and turned in. So there was 2D to ban it and 300 to allow medical marijuana shops to sell recreational marijuana. And still, regardless of what happens, the city council is positioning to trump it in some way and to limit it, because they believe that that's the best thing for our society, and I can't say I disagree with them, but we're still waiting for it to come in. Originally, it looked like both were going to win, and that was going to be interesting, but now it's more and more looking that 300 to allow it is going to pass, and 2D to restrict it or to ban it is going to fail. And so what that would mean is that about 100 medical marijuana shops that currently operate in the city would be allowed to start selling recreational. And as we covered many times during the election season, those who are proponents of this are saying, hey, we should just have the tax money because it doesn't impact society in a negative way. We might as well just get the tax money. But the data, if you really look into it, and your own eyes and your own gut tells you differently. But Clarence, I know that you're right now just represent. We generally do this. Clarence is representing himself, not his organization, not anybody who he works for, because we like to get people's personal opinion when they're in here. How are you looking at this, and do you have concerns about recreational marijuana being legal in the Springs?
Actually, I do have a lot of concerns about it being legal because a few years ago, Gary Chapman and I wrote a book called Choose Greatness, 11 Wise Decisions Brave Young Men Make. And one of the things we talked about was drugs and how it impacts. And I was surprised as I did the research that legal marijuana is 2 to 3 times more potent than what you used to get on the street.
Or more, or
and,
a lot more.
And that impacts how you can drive. It's just a lot of different things. And so it's not really a good thing for our young people or whoever gets it. So yeah, I do have concerns about that. And having served as a chaplain for the sheriff's department, we see a lot of things, and there are really no laws as how to deal with someone who's high on marijuana. So it creates more havoc than it does good.
So there's more on the alcohol side. You're trained for that, but marijuana, they haven't figured that out.
They haven't figured that out yet, because it's still relatively new, even though it's legal. Mm-hmm. In regards to the laws, and someone's high, there's not they're working on that.
Okay, and now what about societally? As far as impacting neighborhoods, crime, homelessness, things like that. People claim both sides. That it will, it doesn't. What have you seen?
It actually does. It actually does. It just makes things worse. It's not the hard drug, but it can also be a starter drug for things like cocaine, and people don't do a lot of LSD anymore, but it's a start. But it's not really helpful. And when kids teenagers are trying to mature, it can really impact them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I mean, what we do know is up until 25, age of 25, the brain is still developing, and that's a big impact, even though it's legal at 21. You know, I'm sort of torn on it because, you know, people can go over to Manitou anyway or up to Palmer Lake and get it anyway, but I think that, you know, if people want to, it's legal, but as far as how it impacts and the image of Colorado Springs as a family-oriented place, as a military-oriented place, that this becoming legal here, I think, and this is why even Mayor Yemi, who is quite egalitarian and liberal in a lot of ways as an unaffiliated, you know, he's against it, and people who are really charged with caretaking the city, I think overall don't see it as a good image bearer for Colorado Springs, dude.
Well, it's not a good image bearer in the fact that we're trying to be family friendly, and because we do have the military here, it just makes it more difficult to try and control it. But the side effects will just really, I think they're greater than people actually realize. And so, and again, the damage it can do to young people in their brains while they're developing, it's just, and it's not safe. You know, if you're driving at night, it slows down your ability to, your reflexes, so you can have more accidents and death driving at night. So I know people want it to be legal, but it's long term. It's not a good idea.
Right. And the verdict's still out, so we're still waiting for that to come in, and also the city council is raring to stop it no matter what it looks like. Okay, next article: New Addiction Recovery Center opens in Colorado Springs. We're doing family-oriented, counseling-oriented things because Clarence is here. New Addiction Recovery Center opens in Colorado Springs using trending model in the field. Did you know about this?
I did not. I did not.
Okay, so what do you think about this? I mean, you had a chance to brief yourself on it a little bit beforehand.
Well, just a little bit. Very, very hectic. Well, yeah, I think recovery centers are great, but people have to put the work in. And the reality of it is, a lot of times, those who are trying to recover from addiction don't stay through the whole program. And then when you get outside of the program, you still typically need support to help you change, because it's a lifestyle change. It's not just I'm going for 30 days or 45 days and get clean. You can do that, but the key is what's going to keep you from going back to it. And so you have to look at a bigger picture and say, you know, even though I may have enjoyed it, long-term benefits is more detrimental. So it's a lot. It depends on what they all put into the recovery program.
And this is called Silver Linings Recovery. It started, I believe, this week. It's on Tejon Street, offering clinical and group therapy by certified recovery coaches and professional clinicians, for-profit business, and let's see, nonprofit arm operating receives 30% of its revenue from Medicare to provide homeless and substance addicted people with life coaching, food, clothing, money for rental deposits, and other daily essentials. But what I would just say about this is what happens. I even heard it, you know, in before, like, because I heard this in the Bahamas when they made gambling legal there, and it's always, we're going to get the tax money, and then all these, you know, nonprofits and for-profits have to deal with the fallout. And so, you know, I mean, this is good that it's here, but might we need this more because we're allowing more drug use, mushrooms, marijuana in the city, and then the tax money isn't going toward helping the people who are falling through the cracks here.
Well, yeah, it'll definitely increase the need for addiction recovery. And, you know, typically when people do things like this in cities, they don't think long term. They don't look at the big picture. And sometimes they deny the reality that the tax money is not actually worth it. And we need to, because it's going to cost more, the more people get addicted, to try and have a recovery and the quality of life.
Okay, last article real quick. Colorado received record-breaking number of safe to tell reports in 2023-2024 school year. You know what? We were a minute off here. I was on my recording, so we don't have time to do this one. But you can look it up, the safe to tell reports and students reporting in there. Hey, it's live radio, and we're still working things out here on this side. When we come back, Dr. Clarence Shuler is going to be talking about big ways to improve your marriage relationship. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman, and we'll be right back. I did not zero my clock until a minute in, and I lost my timing. Hey, that was my fault. I forgot to zero my clock.
Oh,
and then I zeroed it 1 minute in, and then forgot that I was running up against 9 minutes instead of 10. And didn't budget myself properly. So that one was on me.
Cool.
Thank you, Jim.
No problem.
Okay. I like to say that the practice for today's show was yesterday's show.
Okay.
Always trying to figure it out. Okay, have you made some bullet points down there, or just?
Well, I've got my PowerPoint
Yeah.
on the two
Okay.
for the two points.
Okay. Just want to make sure that you know that you don't blank. You look down. You know where you're going.
Yeah, I'm just kind of following you. I mean,
Okay.
I've got my PowerPoint here, so I
Okay.
wouldn't blank, so I can just read it.
Okay. So this one is a monologue, unless you finish early and sort of hand it back to me. So I'm
Okay.
going to expect that you're just going to give about a 4-minute
Okay.
just
Okay.
monologue with this.
Okay. Yes.
So
yes.
I'll introduce it,
Okay.
and then I'll give you those time cues, the 3, 2, 1, and 30
Okay.
second
Okay.
time cues. Again, if it just starts ending, like, don't feel the need to.
Prolong it?
Yeah, I can always come in with a good follow-up question.
Okay. Okay.
But if you can fill the time, fill the time
Okay.
until we get to that, till the music hits,
Okay.
and then I'll close it out. Thanks for being flexible. I know we got to get that letter out again to everybody. I just got used to not sending it because we weren't following that model during the past month. Let me finish this thing here.
Express Printing is your one-stop family-owned print shop in Colorado Springs. In business for more than 30 years, Express is part of our community. Located at 3434 West Jeffrey Circle, Express Printing is friendly, fast, and affordable, offering a variety of printing, office, and design services. John and Bob will know you on a first-name basis and work out great solutions for all your printing needs. For more info, go to expressco.com. That's the letter X, pressco.com. Your one-stop
We're back in about 30 seconds.
Hi, I'm Dr. Todd Pickle from Pickle Prosthodontics, your board-certified dental implant specialist in Southern Colorado. We provide individual treatment solutions that will assist you in maintaining your smile investment for years to come. Looking at dental implants, eye teeth, crowns, and dentures. For more information and to book a free consultation, visit pickledental.com. That's pickledental.com.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. And we are local stories told by local people, supported by local businesses. And that's one of the ways that we stay independent. Really, where the media went wrong was when the special interest, when the business department got too close to the editorial department. But our sponsors, it's broad-based. All local businesses. I want to give a shout out to one of our gold sponsors, John Graham Homes, taking the drama out of home buying and selling while saving you money too. And you'll hear John's commercial here and can find his hot link on our website, John Graham Homes. And really all of our sponsors, please take a listen, please patronize them. They're bringing this service of hyperlocal news to you here in the Pikes Peak region. Well, we have Dr. Clarence Shuler of Building Lasting Relationships here on the Peak, and we're talking about really all over relationships, how to have better relationships, especially in a very divided country post-election. Thing that Clarence and his ministry and his organization really focuses on is marriage, and so he's going to talk now 2 big ways to improve your marriage relationship. Clarence.
Okay. Well, relationships are really keys in the song of life. And the first one I think is really important is this whole idea, especially for Christians, is to read the Word together and apply it together. So what I do when couples come to me and they're struggling and they're Christ followers, I have them read a certain New Testament book, a short one, a chapter a night, and then ask a couple questions, only like two. And then I have them hold hands and pray together. And what's neat about that is that most women want their boyfriends or husbands to be spiritual leaders. But we typically don't get trained about that in church. No one talks about that. But if we take the initiative, we don't have to know more than they do, and initiate that spending time in the Word, that just really helps them to feel good about that. So the first thing I would say would be reading and applying God's Word together. And I'm talking about just a chapter, so it takes maybe 10 minutes to do it, not 3 or 4 hours, just 10 minutes. The second thing, and probably most important thing, would be to pray together. And people say it's really simple, but praying together, you don't have to sound like the pastor in church where you have this big, deep voice, but just praying with your wife and initiating that just does a lot of different things. When people pray, they share about what's most important to them. So when your wife shares or prays, she's actually telling you how to be a better husband to her. Or as your husband prays with the wife, he's actually telling her how to be a better wife to him and stuff like that. So, and if I can get them to hold hands, there's something about the touch, it's something supernatural. And when we pray together, we tend to have more patience with each other, we tend to have better communication, and it just does some tremendous things. And then research shows that couples that have the longest lasting marriages and the happiest marriages are the couples that pray together. And people don't think about that. And so many Christians get defeated in their marriages because they don't use some of the weapons that we have. One of the weapons is the Word of God. The other weapon is the Holy Spirit that indwells us. And then the other weapon is prayer. And so when I share with couples to do this, it is very simple. It can revolutionize their marriage. And these are 2 of 8 practices, I say, that can revolutionize any marriage.
What about people who maybe have an aversion to it or having a difficulty, coming together and doing that because there's trust broken or whatever? How do you? I mean, are these the baby steps?
These are the baby steps, but trust can be rebuilt, and trust has to be seen and has to be earned. And so what I try and do with couples is create a safe place and to say, hey, honey, what can we do to start out doing this? And if there's a problem with praying together or reading the Word, and say, hey, what is it and how can we work around it? So all problems most times can really be solved.
If people are listening that don't have faith or they're not Christian or they don't have faith, is there a level of that they can do?
Oh, sure. They can communicate with each other, talk to each other about what's really most important to them. They can take some of the problems they have, the smallest one, the easiest one, try and work on that, resolve that, and then work up to the big ones.
Okay. How have you seen this transform? Does it usually, take a while, or is it just the ministering of the Word? It just has its way. Why do you think it works so well?
Well, I've seen it happen in a week. I usually give them an assignment, have a short book in the New Testament, 4 chapters, tell them to read it for a week. They come back, and a lot of times they stop coming for counseling because their marriage has been restored already.
Well, that's not good for your business.
It is not, but it's good for the marriage.
Okay, so don't do that if you're going to. Okay, I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're here on Faith and Family Wednesday, and we're talking relationships with Dr. Clarence Shuler of Building Lasting Relationships. When we come back, we're going to be talking about this broken society that we are in post-election and how we can talk to our neighbors, co-workers, and repair those relationships. Yeah, that was great. That worked great. That was a good segment.
Well, thanks for that.
Yeah,
helps.
that works.
Yeah.
I think that little piece I think that'd be good on your website. I think it sort of encapsulated you and everything. It felt good. The whole thing felt good. Okay, cool. So this is only a 2-minute break, so we're back pretty quick. So we're on segment 4. So again, this is 12 minutes, so you're going to have about 2.5 minutes or so per answer on average. So we'll move through it, and so this is usually the place where if you don't land the plane, I'll give you this.
Land it for
But what if you see me hold up a finger or two, I'm giving you a time budget. So I'm saying like, hey, 1 more minute on that one, and that can help you pace it. And that's how I go through the.
Okay, and we're on number.
Segment 4.
Segment 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really important to me to have a dentist that understood how
experienced a lot of headaches, just not feeling well. And I did some research and I found that mercury is in amalgams in the teeth. And Dr. Summit was very excited to help people get free of these amalgams and the mercury that's in them. I've noticed my health improve almost immediately. And I felt like, almost to the point, I remember a few years ago feeling, I kind of like going to the dentist.
For holistic, general, cosmetic, and restorative dentistry or Invisalign in a stress-free environment, call 719-375-2427. That's 719-375-2427 and ScreensDentists.com. Screens Dentists, your life, your health, your smile.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer, news talk, conservative news talk across the entire Pikes Peak region. And on the Salem Network, the answers, we have answers all over the country. But here, we have the Peak. Because you know what? You can't do much on the federal level. You really can't. Or on the state level, unless you're called to that. Really, the county, the city, your neighborhood, your family, that's where it happens. And if each one of us would work on that, wow, what a great society, what a great country we would have. And so we are talking about relationships in this post-2024 election era. Boy, did it get nasty. It has been for many, many years, just dividing and dividing, whether it's us, whether it's the algorithms, regardless of what it is. This is not, it doesn't feel like to me what I grew up with, where you knew your neighbors, where you could talk about stuff, and even if you disagreed, you knew how to do it civilly. Now it's about cancel culture and everything else, and that is not going to work. And you know what it's doing? It's leaving us all very lonely. We're very, very lonely. We're very, very isolated in our marriages, in our families, at our work, because we just feel like we can't be ourselves and talk. And so, in order to help us through that, and again, in this post-election era of this year, Dr. Clarence Shuler of Building Lasting Relationships is here to talk about how we can build those relationships, maybe the ones that we don't have, with that person that lived across the street for 20 years and we don't even know their name. Like, can you imagine that? But to start doing that, and so the rest of the program we're going to be spending time giving you tips on how to do that. So, Clarence, again, thank you for being on the Peak.
Well, thanks for having me.
How long have you been involved doing seminars, doing counseling, and specifically focusing on relationships? What's your background?
Almost 40 years.
Wow.
And so I spent time with some pastors, went to school, and stuff like that. And I think Dr. Walt Larimore, you might know him. He's a local doctor here in town.
Oh.
We figured it out that I probably talked to about 120,000 people over 40 years about marriage, in conferences, counseling, or events that we do.
Well, and what's your training and professional background?
Well, actually, as a pastor,
Okay.
getting my degree in that, and with a PhD, but a master's degree and stuff like that. So, and when you counsel as a pastor, you get that a lot of hours,
Okay.
So.
And when did you know that relationships was specifically what you were going to focus on?
Well, it just sort of happened. I was in a place where, unfortunately, there was a lot of immorality, and people were saying, well, how can you make this work? And so even as a single guy, I started sharing biblical principles. And then I got married about a year later and drafted my wife into it, and we started doing it together. And we just had to learn the process. But then people said, well, we don't know people we can go to for help. And so they started coming to us, and a lot by word of mouth. And then we started our ministry, and I've written a couple of marriage books. And so it's just one thing after another. Also, Gary Chapman, the Five Love Languages guy, introduced me to Christ when I was 16.
Oh, really?
And we speak together and do a lot of things together, so that didn't hurt either.
Wow, that's wonderful. What a great mentor.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Well, that's a little bit of a background item to mention. So why do you think our generation struggles so much with having personal, intimate, deep relationships?
Well, one guy said that communication is really an art, and there are very few artists, and we have to work at it. Communication is to relationships what location is to real estate. We got to communicate, assume nothing and talk about everything. But part of communication that really we don't focus on is listening. Listening is about half of communication. And when we listen to somebody else, especially our spouse or someone we're dating or someone we're interested in, they take that as, hey, you care about me. And so just by listening, we're saying you're important to me. And so I think those are things we don't talk about, don't hear about, that is so important, this whole idea about communication. Sometimes we're selfish. We want, and people just go on and on and on. And then, unfortunately, I love phones. They, to some extent, but they have hurt our social media and how we communicate. You mentioned the bullying thing. It's that hurts us because we tend to say a lot of things we would never say face to face that we do through social media. And so again, so when we're face to face, we tend to be intimidated, and there is an epidemic of loneliness, and we don't want to be rejected. So all those things factor into our struggle with communication relationships.
What about people sort of, not knowing who they are? I mean, we have a lot of confusion now, even with gender and everything else. I'm finding that even within church, as I'm a Jewish believer, so I tend to bring in things that are, I come at things right to left instead of left to right. I come at things Hebraically, and so we have, we sometimes, read the same scriptures a little bit differently and bring it, and people sort of don't know even how to defend their faith. They don't know how to defend who they are, and so they get angry rather than just being like, hey, let's talk about it. Have you seeing that, how to get people to sort of get more educated on how to be themselves and how to sort of defend them? I don't know if defend's the right word, but to represent themselves in a way where they don't have to get triggered or scared or run away or get angry.
Well, because of all the division that has been in our country in the last few years, decades, people are fighting more, and there's more division. And what we don't see is a lot of people peacemakers. And so, we were talking about it off the air that if I have a neighbor I haven't seen or haven't talked to, don't know her name, the relationship should be bigger than if we disagree politically or religiously. If I just go over to the door and knock on the door and say, hey, we're neighbors and I don't know you, I would like to get to know you better, would that be okay? And just start, sit on the front porch and talk, say, what are some things you'd like to do and stuff like that. Those go a long way. And then that goes from where somebody you don't know to someone you can trust, and someone who you can leave your keys with when you go on vacation. They can check your house and stuff like that. But we've gotten away from that, and our houses have become like sanctuaries where we just don't, we get there, we shut everybody else out, and we go, leave me alone. But we really do want fellowship and friendship. So I think those are some things that can hurt us in relationships.
So what are some other things that you do when you're in counseling to help people build deeper relationships?
Well, I have to hear what the issue is, but I try and create a safe place.
You want to give maybe some example of an issue that would come up?
Well, say it's been infidelity, and so when it's infidelity, they certainly have grounds for divorce, but usually divorce is not always the best option. And so I ask them, and usually they still love each other. And so I simply ask them two questions. I said, do you want to save your marriage? And they usually say yes. And I said, well, will you do anything it takes to save your marriage? And say yes. And then I have a blueprint. We begin to walk through that. And I introduce them to some scripture. I have them do a little memorization, because we have to change the way we think. And if we change what we think, that usually changes our actions. And so, but also, my role is to help the husband or wife or the boyfriend and girlfriend to hear each other. Sometimes they just need a third voice. And if I can get them to hear and find the truth, which is somewhere in the messy middle, and they can agree on that, then they can start going forward. And then when they take some baby steps, like you say, and see progress, they say, okay, we can do this. And I've had a lot of couples that we've helped with that have had affairs, Christian couples, and they all say this to me, independently of each other. I hate the affair occurred in our marriage, but our marriage is better now than it's ever been. But they put the work in.
We're not encouraging people to have
No,
an affair.
we're not.
Sorry, no, because a lot of times your marriage is over, buddy.
Yeah, but we're not encouraging that. But it's really a powerful statement, though.
Right.
That it's been that way. And I've even had grandparents come up to me and say, you didn't just save their marriage, you saved them. And I said, well, who are them? That's the grandchildren.
Right.
Because, what we do in our marriages, either positively or negatively impact our families to a third and fourth generation. So it really makes a difference. So as we're parenting, we're not just parenting our kids, we're parenting our grandkids and great-grandkids.
Okay, so let's talk about your organization, Building Lasting Relationships. Tell us about it. How can people get involved with it? What are some of your core programs?
Well, we do marriage. We do also do singles conferences. Do some diversity. I've just written a new book on depression, but it's all about relationships. We try and build people, meet them where they are, and help them become stronger, and not just help themselves, but if they do it really well, we try and help them help other people, because people tend to learn more when they're teaching than being taught. And if they're teaching someone, then the principles they learn
No.
can become lifelong. So that's what we really do. So it's really about discipleship using different venues through the context of relationship. Our website's just my name, ClarenceShuler.com. We're post, so my last name, there's only one, there's no C and only one L, so it's Clarence Shuler, not Clarence, but ClarenceShuler.com. And if they go there,
SHULER.
that's right.
Okay,
And
so
if-
you said you told me you couldn't afford the C or the other L,
That's
right?
right. That's
Okay.
right. So, but if they go there on my website, on my homepage, they get 13 free relationship videos. So whether they're single or dating or marriage, those 13 videos are free, and they can play them anytime they want. So that's our gift to local community here.
And again, just building lasting relationships. If you Google that, it will pop up too.
Right, and they can email me through the website too.
So when you're counseling, what are some of the things that you really enjoy most about your job when you're working with people?
Well, when I'm able to hit it on the nail. You know, one lady last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, she said she was talking about getting married. She was going to get remarried, and she was talking about things, and things didn't go well in the first marriage, and she was disappointed with her family. And as I listened to her, I said, you know, before I start working with you and your potential husband, you and I need to talk. And I said, you know, you need to do some forgiveness. And she stopped talking. She said, you hit it right on the nail. I need to do that. So we worked through that. So simple things like that. So I have to listen and then go from there.
So when you have discernment.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's very cool. So for more information and everything, building lasting relationships, Clarence, ClarenceShuler.com, ClarenceShuler.com. Well, we're spending this hour talking about working on relationships, which is something that we need to do. We need to invest that time. We need to put it in. We need to really humble ourselves. We need to find middle ground. But more than anything else, we need to be able to take little risks to move in that direction and risk rejection. And when we come back with Clarence, we're going to talk about something that you can do, a couple of tips with that coworker, with that neighbor, with that person you know. They don't agree with you politically necessarily, but you can still be friends. We'll be right back with the Peak. Cool. That was a good segment.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I gotta
You did a good job of leading me. Appreciate
Thanks. That's my thing. And yet, and I'm saying this to people on YouTube, I'm a communications person, but I'm not always the best interpersonally. That's why the microphone's good. It doesn't talk back. I have an interpersonal. Let's see. New email.
You have a little bit less than 5 minutes.
Okay. That's not till we're back. That's he means in the next segment before the next segment before I have to throw it to a pre-recorded thing that we just gotta. If I can connect this, we can actually have a script for the next show. There we go. Come on. There's take the drama. Hey James, I just emailed you my partner's info. We're still going. I just sent the email and You seem to still be
Um,
rolling.
so this just ends Facebook, but you're gonna have to go switch right to it. So I think I'm gonna switch to Riverside.
No, but I'll be ending this. We're not gonna keep streaming.
Right, which is why you want to stop streaming on YouTube, not just Facebook. So
I'm gonna hand you the laptop. Like
You're
the
gonna be
moment
able
we're done, I'm gonna pull it and hand it to you.
You're gonna have time in 14
I have
seconds.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Or I have more than that if I end a little early.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll
and,
leave it.
yeah. So coming to get that, and
And
then
then-
you're
and then
and then
I'm
you're
gonna
gonna
leave.
take off.
So
Okay.
I'll
So leave that on my
I'll leave
desk.
the computer out here.
Sorry, when you say a little under.
Senior pastor from Revenue Chapel Hill. Join 400 men Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. for Bible study and breakfast, and Sunday mornings for our regular classes.
Final segment.
Okay.
Check us out at thelow.org. That's thelow.org.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to The Peak. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. So, here's the deal. Are you intimidated to talk to people at work, maybe your next door neighbor, maybe even people within your own house, about politics, about your faith, really about any topic? That's a problem. And, I have my opinions about sort of where people are at and when they tend to be involved in this cancel culture. I think overall, conservative people tend to be more tolerant than the people who call themselves tolerant. That's not to a person, but I'm finding that because I have relatives who are like that. And we can't talk about anything. And we're not able to talk about anything. Everything's political. Everything's that. I'm not saying that there aren't people on both sides that are intolerant, but overall, maybe I just said something inflammatory and I just shot my whole thing of trying to get it. Clarence is laughing at me from across the desk. But, we all have to be willing to listen. We all have to be willing to invest in these relationships. And I'm not great at that. That's why I have a microphone. It doesn't talk back to me. I love it. But my wife does, and my children do, and my people at work do. And so we have Clarence Shuler here of Building Lasting Relationships. This is our final segment. I said, Clarence, I always like to, at the end of the program, really encourage people and give them some kind of baby steps to get out the door and put into practice themselves what we were talking about on the program. So, Clarence, how would you suggest easy steps, basic stuff, that to walk across the street and talk to that neighbor, or to build a relationship, at work, and I would guess it's not going to the hot button issues first, but I'll leave that to you. What do you say?
Well, Chaim, I interesting perspective. You did have me laughing there. I think one thing I would encourage you, people who are listening, to look at the other person is really important. Not necessarily more important than you are, and so it's not an ego thing, but that they're worth it. And so even if you have different ideas or ideologies, Chaim, I would just say go and say hello. Say, hey, we worked together for a long time. I don't think we really talked a lot. I saw some of your stickers and stuff, but hey, how are you doing? Just tell me something. You're doing a break, or say, hey, can I see you support so and so? Can we go to lunch and talk about that? If it's a neighbor saying, when I grew up, all the neighbors knew each other, and in this neighborhood, I don't really know anybody, and I've been here for years. Hey, just tell me, I think you've been here X number of years, but tell me some things you enjoy doing. Do you have a few minutes? Could we just talk, or could we, you have a great yard or something like that? And just something very simple to start a conversation. And people may say, no, I don't have time, but don't let that stop you. Don't let the first person, go 3 or 4 times. Our society is so closed to some extent. We can't go by first or second or third impressions. But if you keep going persistent, it can make a difference.
I'm not one for small talk. That's the thing. Like, I don't want to talk about the weather. I want to go right for how do I overcome this need to talk about really deep, important things from the beginning?
But you can. But if you want to build a relationship, you have to meet people where they are. And if you're going to start out with fire, they may come back with some water, and nothing's accomplished. But if you say, hey, I want to get to know you, then that's important. And then as they talk, and then down the road, you can say, hey, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat, whatever you are. And then you say, hey, well, really? And that friendship really lays foundation. I want to hear what you have to say. I don't necessarily. I agree with you. I want to hear you. I don't necessarily agree with your point, but because I respect you, I want to hear it. Maybe I'll learn something. And I think we have that idea. Those are that makes it worth it. Then that neighbor becomes a good friend, even though we don't agree on everything, and we don't have to.
Okay, and then drink a beer. That's what I would say. That covers a multitude of sins. Dr. Clarence Shuler, Building Lasting Relationships, website ClarenceShuler.com. Thanks so much for being on the Peak with us today.
Hi, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And I love starting a relationship with you. Let's move it forward.
That works for me.
Okay, now and we have Jim Miller and the Peak Rants. Jim's on relationship. That's a tough thing. We'll see what Jim's talking about today.
I'm Jim Miller. I ran for mayor. I'm
Okay.
a veteran. I'm getting
You can listen to him if you
getting
want.
old.
Okay.
I'm a father. A husband.
Keys.
Overworked.
Keith.
And
Did he get scripts? We need scripts.
Alright,
So we have about 5 minutes, and then we have 2 minutes, and we go right into the show. So if
Oh,
you
okay,
want
no,
a
sure,
bathroom
okay.
break or get
Okay.
water,
Okay.
now would be the time to do it because we have about 5 minutes right
Okay.
now.
I don't think James was getting the scripts. I don't think he
Oh, I asked him to print them out.
Yeah, he didn't get it in his email.
Oh, you didn't?
Did he get it?
Did they not come?
You
didn't get it?
raccoons roam around. You're like, oh, that's one big mama raccoon. And I don't know how many come for how many years. I know I used to have one living behind my garage. I just kind of left it be because it wasn't really
Sad.
a garbage digger. But it used to be a lot more wildlife out here. A lot more like rustic, wild,
Send it to me
mountain,
too, and I'll
just
forward it to him.
authentic.
It went. I mean, I sent it to
A
him.
lot better with that. I mean, you'd be driving down the road. It's springtime, even in fall, and you're like, that is a deer running next to me on Murray, and you're like, I better slow down because I don't know what direction that deer's gonna take. That stuff isn't out here anymore. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's
Yeah,
because
sent.
Okay, and make sure you go back to the right tab. Make sure you go back to the right tab, the Riverside tab.
Oh, okay.
The deers that come around, I
Yeah,
find
like some traffic.
So yeah,
Traffic lights.
It's great. It's always crazy here in the. Do you have enough water? Do you want to?
yeah, I think I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go make myself a coffee. We have probably about 4 minutes till I have to do the clerk. Did you get it?
Not a bunch of businesses, not choices in Walmart, choices in malls. Just seeing the deer, some of the animals roaming around while I'm just going about my day. And we just slow down and be like, it's fine, let the deer, the animal pick its direction, where it's gonna go, and we'll do our thing too. It's not as much of that no more, and it just doesn't seem to look or be as appealing to people like me at least. Remember, if we want it better, we need to be better. I'm Jim Miller. I'm just a guy and listen to the Peak on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer. We'll be right back.
Are you worried about the economy ruining your assets? Does your spouse have financial questions you simply can't answer? At FRS Financial Group, we help you plan for a no-fear future. I'm Rick Stevens, one of the founding partners with FRS, and whether you already have an investment portfolio or can only afford to start putting away a little each paycheck, we'll work with you to make your retirement dreams a reality. Contact us at FRSFinancialGroup.com for more information. FRS Financial Group, regular people helping regular people. LPL Financial member FINRA SIPC.
Full Arbor Sports Teams has a new facility for after-school youth programs. It's located at 2380 Montebello near North Academy and Union with 2 pools for swim lessons and swim teams, a weight room for powerlifting, conditioning, and more. Full Arbor Sports Teams is a Christ-centered and family-oriented organization bringing the youth of Colorado Springs together. For more info on after-school and homeschool programs, go to FullArborSportsTeams.com or call 719-629-SWIM.
Don't let multiple decayed or missing teeth interfere with your enjoyment of life. Hi, I'm Dr. Todd Pickle from Pickle Prosthodontics, your board-certified dental implant specialist in Southern Colorado. We provide individual treatment solutions that will assist you in maintaining your smile investment for years to come, including dental implants, eye teeth, crowns, and dentures. For more information and to book a free consultation, visit pickledental.com. That's pickledental.com.
Rocky Mountain Voice is a new conservative news source providing Colorado with reliable quality news that builds community and empowers citizens to keep informed, educated, want a smarter way to renovate your kitchen or bath than this? Whoa! Then don't let anyone smash up anything with a sledgehammer. Call Granite Transformations and Trend Transformations and tell them Janet sent you. Our gorgeous interior by Gilson and our back.
Make sure to switch it to the.
Yeah, to KGFT. Okay, and you'll grab the laptop, and you'll kill the camera and do the laptop as soon as it's over.
Okay.
This is our
I'll
script
just
for
take
the
the
next
laptop.
show.
So should I already be in here? Or
What?
I'll just rush in right when you're done.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have, yeah,
You know, maybe a couple seconds in.
okay.
Created a nonprofit Peak News Educational Foundation to develop and administer our journalistic ethics and media vocational training program for local high school and college students, coupled with a professional level internship at the Peak News. For more information and to donate, go to thepeak.news/foundation. The Peak News Educational Foundation, our way of paying it forward.
Thank you for joining us today for The Peak. I hope that you're inspired to do something about relationships. I know it's scary. I know it's easier to stay in your house, stay on your phone, stay in your bubble, but as Jim Miller says, if we want it to be better, we gotta be better. And we need to take that risk. And everybody out there, you know, they're hurting, we're lonely. We wish we had these relationships. We wish we were able to be ourselves. We wish we didn't have to go around wondering whether we were going to be canceled or not. And so the agent of change is you, and that's in your family, it's in your relationships, at work, at church. Take that risk. You know, it might hurt a little bit, you might get rejected, but overall, you know you're doing the right thing, and that's what we need to do, and I encourage you to do that. Thank you for being a listener of The Peak, and tomorrow, on tomorrow's show, tomorrow is Media and Education Day, and our guest, I'm excited about this, is one of our Peak interns, Audra Gapper. And she, when she came in to be an intern a couple months ago, decided she wanted to focus on being an investigative journalist. And she's been out there doing research on youth homelessness, local youth homelessness. And she's going to be on The Peak tomorrow talking about how she went about learning how to research this, what she's come up with, and actually giving a preliminary report on it. So tune in tomorrow at 3 p.m. here on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Word, to hear Audra. And on Fridays, well, we're not here, we take a break, but Dirk Hobbs and the Southern Colorado Business Forum and Digest is on. Stay tuned now for the Larry Elder Show, coming up next on AM 1460. And check out our podcast. We have well over 100 podcasts. I think we're pushing 140 on thepeak.news. You're sure to find somebody, maybe somebody, an official you know, or people you don't know, a lot of interesting people you've never heard of. Go on, check out our podcast, learn more about our community, and then decide that you want to be a citizen journalist and sign up on our website, because The Peak, we say the quiet stuff out loud, and we want you to help us say it even louder for such a time as this. Shalom.